For my behind the hoop tour this week, I am showing you 2 hoops made from a pattern that's available in my Etsy shop, and I can link that below in the description. This is the plumage pattern. This was a really fun experiment in textures with this hoop. Well, actually, I'm going to show you behind the hoop first, the hoop guts. So behind this hoop, you can see I have 1 beaded feather and 1 just embroidered feather. You can see I actually never really finished this one. I was not sure if I was going to keep it in this hoop, and I will talk about that in a minute. But you can see my hoop guts are very clean. You can see the feather pattern. I always kind of like when you can see exactly what the front is from the back. And then you can just see that this one is a lot more thread heavy, and this one I used a lighter beading thread. And then this one, these I did a combination of thread and beads. So the back is a combination of the threads that I used. Both very clean hoops because the motif is focused in the center. Okay, so getting back to this hoop. This is a Nerge hoop, and you can see it's a lot thicker than just a standard embroidery hoop. So they're both 10-inch hoops, but you can see the thickness is a lot different. Also on a Nerge hoop, the hardware is, this one is just fine. This is just a regular hoop that you would pick up in a craft store. It's not one of the bamboo ones. It's one of the like wood, the light wood ones. This one is much sturdier, and the hardware is really, really nice on this hoop. It's nice and thick. The reason I didn't secure it in here like I normally do on the back of my hoops with the glue and everything is because I wasn't sure that I was going to keep it in this hoop. Now, it's been a while ago that I stitched this one, and it's still in this hoop, but I wanted to be able to use this nice hoop again for another project and be able to take this out and just transfer it into a different hoop. So until that time comes, this is where it's going to stay, in this hoop. I think it's fun to play with pattern, and so with this pattern that I created, one I have on a printed background with a motif, and this is a Carolyn Friedlander fabric. And then the other one, I feel like, I can't remember exactly, I feel like this is like an Essex linen fabric. It has little, I like this because it has, if you could see, a tiny little flecks of color throughout here, which I think is so pretty. So even though it's a solid background, it still, when you look close, has something going on there. So I like to play with the same pattern in 2 different ways, and you'll notice when I teach classes and stuff, I'll sometimes do that if it's from a pattern, just to see the variety of projects that you can create from one pattern. So this one is a printed background, Carolyn Friedlander fabric, and I used a mix of textures and beads in this. Let's see, this is not the felt one. I did a version where I cut the words out of felt, and that was very tricky. This is a chain stitch out of a thicker thread, and then I went back through and did a back stitch throughout it just to make it stand out a little bit. Sometimes I feel like when you're working with letters or words, they need to like really stand out from the fabric, especially when there's a lot going on. So I did that. This is turkey work, which I have a video up, I think, on my channel to see how to do that. I think I might update that video soon. So, and then some woven stitches, which again, you can see the tutorials for all of these stitches on my channel. And then just a fun mix of colors. It was kind of, I wanted to pick a bead that didn't really match any of the threads in here. And so I went with these like neon purple beads, which it's just very happy colors. I really love this hoop. And then this version, with this one, I experimented on doing a fully beaded version of the feather and then just a fully stitched version of the feather. Each one is outlined, and the outline for these is it's needlepoint yarn from Koigu, K-O-I-G-U. It's the KPPPM needlepoint yarn, and I can write that in the notes too. So when I'm filling up a beaded area, I still do like to include some outline stitches, but I also had a lot of fun with the beads in this one, and I really enjoy doing this. When I get to do one color of something, picking through my beads and finding all of the beads and the different shapes that can match the pattern that I'm going for. I like to mix up the different threads. So for this one, I'm using the Koigu needlepoint yarn that I mentioned, as well as some tapestry wool. So I like to be able to mix up the textures. The tapestry wool is slightly thicker. You can see it's a little bit more raised than the needlepoint yarn. That's a really pretty variegated color. I love that one. So this is the plumage pattern. It's available in my Etsy shop. And if you do end up stitching this, I'd love to see your version, because it's really cool to see the variety that can be created from one pattern with your own creativity. I hope you enjoyed your behind the hoop look into these two projects of mine, and come back next week when I will take you into another project from my vault.